Knowing the difference between spiritual and religious, well, that is a question that we've had recently with one of our listeners out there. So we wanted to address what is the difference between spiritual and religious. And I have Tom here who's going to put on his spiritual businessman hat today because he has a really good example of when this showed up for him recently when he was in business.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, let's do this, Tom.
Okay. So I had an experience not too long ago, like a week or so ago. And a friend of mine said, a colleague actually, I really worked hard the other day. I put a 16-hour day in. And he was very proud of himself. And that's great. And the idea occurred to me, why don't I check with guidance, what's that all about, And it struck me that we're really trained to work hard and for reward. If I work hard, I'll get the reward. And that struck me as a good example of a religious concept. If I work hard, if I suffer, I'll get to heaven. And that's one way of looking at it. Whereas I asked my spiritual helpers, my guides, to give me some insight into this. And they said, well, really, it's about working smarter, you might say. And that what that means is that you decide when you're going to do your work, you set a specific timing, and you work in what we call compact units, and maybe take a break every 50 minutes, whatever suits you, to keep your energy high. And also to work when the energy is there for different projects. So either the people are there or, you feel that spiritual backing at that time. And so what I've done in the past is I'll set up a time to do certain things. So for example, we set up a time to do this podcast today at a certain time. We're going to put a couple episodes together. And we know that as we're involved in this spiritual endeavor, we've got some spiritual backing to back us. So it'll flow easier, than trying to do it at the wrong time. So what struck me was, because I am looking to be more successful in my opportunities, and really what I mean by that is enjoy them more, because I've got a lot of experience and I've worked hard before and I've achieved certain rewards. But especially as one matures, I find that I don't want to suffer through it so much. I don't want to be nervous. I don't want to have anxious about it. I don't want to, feel like it's hard and I want to escape, all those out of balance kind of feelings. I'd rather feel that smooth flow. And there's times when I felt that. So when I regroup with my guidance, what I learned kind of became more aware of, like it's a new level of awareness, that the religious concept about work is that you work hard, reward, you have to suffer for that reward, kind of a thing. Spiritually, it's more about being in the right place at the right time, working in compact units, working with your priorities, and work when the energy is there. And I think the other key word for me was follow through. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think that's interesting because when I think of religious and spiritual, and of course you're putting on your businessman hat. So,
Yes.
I don't have my businessman hat on right now. So, but as far as the difference, and you're talking about like working hard and suffering and also, what that happens, when that happens, a lot of people can relate to that because of the fact that, yeah, if we all work hard or work to our excess, like in the fields or whatever. I mean, I'm just, being hypothetical here. And of course we live in Iowa, so they do work in the damn fields, but, but understanding that when we work with spirit in whatever realm we have in our life, it actually is, it's not I'm suffering. It's not a pressure thing. It is like Tom is saying, it really is a timing. It's a flow. It's, working when the energy is right for me to work in that aspect. And so that's the difference that I take away from that, is that, yeah, for myself, when I do work with spirit, it flows beautifully, and it's only certain length of time. It may not be for 16 hours. It may only be for 2 hours or an hour and a half, or like you're saying, 50 minutes and then taking a break. So that's what my takeaway from that is the reality of, the pressure, the hardness, or moving with spirit. It can be done with grace and ease.
Well said, grace and ease.
I like those
So
words.
it struck me, as I was regrouping that, many people who are successful in life will tell you stories about how they became successful. And, if it's in the concepts, you might say, of that audience, so we have this concept, where we live here in the States, that, and probably in Western culture, if you work really hard and you're really diligent, and I'm focusing on that word hard, you're going to be successful, or you can be successful. And honestly, when I've seen people who are successful, they're usually in the right place at the right time more often than they did anything extraordinary at that time. But as a friend of mine once said, they were in the right place at the right time and they did the right things. So what that means to me is the follow through. They followed through in the right place at the right time. And, uh, there's a couple of ways we can go about life. We can hold on to the religious concepts that it has to be hard and struggle, or we can move to a more spiritual idea that we're here to learn specific lessons and to find personal fulfillment. So, often when I work more from a spiritual perspective, I like to say perspective, when I'm working with my true feelings, working with my guidance, I'm working with my inner resources, I accomplish more in less time. I accomplish the key things I need to accomplish, and I enjoy it. It's fun. Work isn't so hard anymore. Even if it's, toiling in the field, so to speak, it's fun to really use your body and to do physical work and enjoy that fulfilling challenge of, the outdoors at times, for example, or feel that sense of accomplishment. You painted the whole house and it was, you had to motivate yourself and, find some inspiration. But once you did, boy, it was fun to do. So I think that's when I really feel that I'm spiritually on track. I'm loving every minute of it. And rather than, oh my God, I got to do this. But we have to watch ourselves, because if we share with others, about this project that we accomplished and we talk about how we suffered through it, we're just propagating, the religious concepts rather than the spiritual truth of things. That I'm here to learn specific lessons and I'm here to find personal fulfillment as well. Does anything strike you about what I just shared there?
Yeah, what strikes me is that, well, for one thing, back to the hard work. So, we do have to work. We do have to be consistent. We do have to
Right.
show up.
You
We
have to
do
show
have,
up.
yeah, we have to, and we have to move through the steps of work. And what comes to me is I'm working with an amazing mentor right now who, when she first started her business, she worked not, I mean, like long hours. She had a child, a young baby. And so it was just her, and she was, having to work. And she worked and worked, but her working success created an abundance. And also, like Tom mentioned, it also came to where things showed up at the right timing, and everything, the evolution of, her moving from that, being in flow, but really doing some hard work at first, just backed her. And she had spirit behind her. And there's also there's a bunch of universal truths and laws, and one's called a law of compensation,
Hmm.
which means that whenever put towards your energy, you're working towards that goal, you may not see at that moment the outcome of the residuals, or the outcome of what you've actually put behind that. And I'll say it's kind of like what we're doing the last couple of years. We've done this podcast, and I've done it 4 years now, 4 full years. What is that? 52 weeks a year. At first, I did it twice a week. Now we're back to doing it twice a week, and we're not monetized, and we're we are not receiving abundance in that form from this podcast. But the way that I've received abundance, honestly, has been connecting with fellow entrepreneurs and business people out in the world, especially a lot that have come on the podcast and shared and made some amazing connections. Also connecting with amazing people around the world who are you listeners, and some of you and I have connected, and we've had amazing success and abundance from that. So sometimes working with, and we'll say, a hard, or flowing with spirit, because that's really what this podcast is. It's flowing with spirit, and what's the energy behind what we're doing versus, yeah, I'm a little worm and I've got to go to work and I've got to work like everybody else and I've gotta. That to me feels religious. But in showing up, being of service, sharing the way that we've shared in this podcast the last 4 years, that brings forth abundance. And I've got chills. I say that when I get chills, that means spirit's like, yeah, that's right on. So that's what comes to me, is just the difference in how my mentor showed up and how she created amazing um, support with spirit, as well as her abundance with her work and supporting her family, and how we're showing up on this podcast and with spirit and with some work, some hard works over the last couple of years, but the fact that we're showing up in the right timing and flowing. So that's what comes to me.
Yeah, and I think there's times when a person who wants to be successful, or I've wanted to be successful, I've had to move myself through, sometimes that pressure to not move forward. I had to kind of move through those barriers, and I became aware of influences around me. I'd go to a potential client meeting, and all of a sudden I wouldn't feel like going into the building, or do I really want to do this kind of a thing? And these days, I sort of recognize that when some of that hesitation's there, one, I check with my guidance: is that me, or am I picking up, you might say, a fear of success? And often when it checks with my guidance, I'll go through with what I'm doing. And it was a great meeting. I really enjoyed it. Like, I wouldn't have missed it for the world, now that I know what I went through. Or the timing, was perfect and things fell into place. So being aware of your sensitivity and my sensitivity, it's I, I've learned, I've had a lot of spiritual lessons, and one of those lessons is just really learning to trust, and follow through and trust my inner direction. And it's okay, though, to play the game of society. If I'm surrounded by work colleagues, say at a client's, and they're all discussing how hard they worked and they suffered so hard to, design this project and make it happen, you know, I don't have to point out to them anything, but just agree with them, or just say, "Oh yeah, it was, we really, worked hard," kind of a thing, because I'm not going to change anybody. But for those that relate to what I'm saying, there's times where you get a chance to share, hey, that was really fulfilling, or help people, really just by me feeling happy and free and successful, that helps radiate out. And I find that like attracts like, so we tend to attract those folks who, get a buzz out of accomplishment and so forth. But when we make it an end in itself, that's when it can get kind of pressure, and you either become a slave master where you're driving yourself, or I drove myself, or you start driving others, because we make that accomplishment, the end in itself, when really spiritually how things work is it's all a means to an end. It's all an opportunity for me to learn about myself. So coming back to, uh, often I think folks assume that what they did, or the lesson they learned from that experience, was they'll assume the lesson, because they've been told. For example, in this example, a religious concept is it has to be hard and we have to struggle and then we get rewarded. Not everybody has that concept, but that's a pretty common one out there. So you have to be aware of looking for ways to suffer through the experience. So one way you can suffer and make it hard so that you subconsciously feel that you have earned this reward is to not communicate at the right time. So you can be frustrated at who didn't show up at the right time or the extra work you had to do to backfill, that situation or whatever it is. But if I start to work more with my guidance, work more with compact units, follow through at the right time, be in the right timing, things work smoother. And spirit is there. Your spiritual helpers are quite happy to give you insight into how things can be more enjoyable and more fun, and you can be more successful.
More fun, Tom. I like
Yeah.
that.
You like fun.
Oh, I like fun. The other thing, the last thing I want to talk about with spiritual versus religious is the aspect of most to me and what I feel about religious is that most of it is out. They try to make it outside of you. Like, listen to the preacher or the minister, they've got the message. They're the ones that connect with spirit. Um, and then, spiritual is going inward and getting our own answers and not needing that outward influence. Now, of course, we have people that we follow and and like even you guys listen to us chat about things. I mean, so we enjoy other people. We need those relationships and things, but there's a line where it could be crossed where it's all about, I'm telling you how to run your life. I'm telling you how to work your business in the religious concepts versus when spiritual, we would just, we would flow with, like Tom was saying, like with, checking in with guidance and, the timing, is this the right timing for me to do this? Am I in the right flow? Am I in the right place? And so that's the thing I really wanted to kind of chat about a little bit about was the outside of us and inside of us.
Yeah, and when that occurs, if I'm listening to that outer authority instead of working with my guidance for the inner reality or the spiritual reality behind how things work, how spirit works, how the laws of the universe work, and we're a part of the laws of the universe. The key is for me not to assume the lesson is this or that. It's to take a moment. If I want to grow spiritually or I want to evolve and find more fulfillment and learn those specific lessons I came here to learn, it's important that I know what that lesson is. So through my experiences, I have various opportunities in life. I have an opportunity to be in business. I have an opportunity to work with Teresa. I have opportunity to uh, do all kinds of things, right? And and then I have experiences within those opportunities. And so if I'm aware of what the spiritual lesson is, then I can stay more on track to my personal involvement. And what that means to me is that things get smoother. They just get easier. I accomplish more. I meet new challenges. I have more inner confidence. I'm more in the right place at the right time. But if I'm always listening to an outer authority, then, and they can get dogmatic, this is how it has to be. Well, then I'll miss the lesson. If I'm looking outside, I start to assume, you might say, that's the lesson, when in fact, the real lesson is, I happen to show up consistently. I did an hour every morning. And, before you know it, I'd done a lot more than I thought I could. So anyways, there's lots of solutions, but the real key is for me to work with my inner resources, which is my, four spiritual gifts, which is how I perceive life and how I communicate, how I pick up those, impressions, those inner knowings, work with my guidance, communicate to my guidance, tell them what my challenges are, and ask for their ideas and solutions. And to me, that's where spiritual freedom, that word, that really steps in, is that I'm not bound by a dogma or a theology. And that the more that we become, a lean, clean spiritual machine, you might say, where we are self-reliant on our soul nature, the faster you grow, and the more fun you have, the more opportunity you have to be of service. And, the cool thing about being of service is that's where a lot of fulfillment lies.
Being of service and
Yeah.
being a lean, mean Spiritual
spiritual
machine. I
machine.
love it, Tom.
Yeah.
And hey, before we go, I want you to tell a little bit about you do a consultation about spiritual lessons. Share a little bit about that.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. It's I do a consultation. It lasts about an hour and 15 minutes. We have that on our website. So if you go to the link to book a discovery call or click on that link, the profile, I call it a profile, will show up. And I work with guidance to help you, and you work with us as well to talk about some key experiences you've had. Sometimes it's the ones that you go, geez, I keep hitting this brick wall and I keep having this certain type of experience in this situation, whether it's a business or a social situation or personal situation. It all applies. And we work with spirit to really help you pinpoint what your opportunity is there. Usually you know what your opportunity is, but what the spiritual lesson is. And then once you learn what the lesson's all about, like if it's more about trusting your inner guidance or your inner, feelings for where you need to be and what you need to be doing, well then, all of a sudden, like, you can look at those experiences with a bit more enthusiasm. And that's what we're all about here at Enthusiastically Spiritual, is helping you rekindle your enthusiasm. So I love it because once I know what I'm getting out of an opportunity, what the spiritual lesson is, boy, then I'm a lot more enthusiastic. And the final step is that as we go through that profile, we identify the experiences you want to have. So now you begin to learn the lesson and have opportunity to practice that lesson that you're learning in a more directed way, which is usually a lot more fun than hitting the brick wall and realizing you need to take a look at it. So that's available. There's no prerequisites for that. I recommend that you get a gifts and guidance profile where you learn about your 4 spiritual gifts, your 4 naturally psychic abilities, and also we show you a snapshot of where your energy is at. And we talk about how many spiritual helpers or angels you brought with you, and we also work on a two-way communication so you can start getting those insights directly for yourself.
Yeah, so there's two opportunities. One that Tom does specifically, and when he recently had that training and came home and did these consultation on me, I was like, wow, because it was really interesting. Because a lot of times, as you guys might recognize, whenever you do something, spirit or the universe kind of sets up things, sets up scenarios that you're ready for that when it comes to you. So when he got home from this, going to Costa Rica and doing or Puerto Rico, I mean, and doing a week away, doing his spiritual work and learning this technique in this session, I was ready for when he got back. So it was perfect timing to dive into some things that I was going through at that time and moving and really getting some keys for myself as to how what am I learning out of the situations and how to move forward in a different way and in a different life. So it was a pretty amazing experience. So we will definitely have the links below for you guys to check out the gifts and guidance, which we both do, and then the one about the spiritual lessons, which Tom does. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have those below.
Yeah. So
Last words, Tom?
our last words are: don't assume the lesson.
Don't assume the lesson.
Remember, you're your best authority, and your guidance are your best authority for what you're putting together for yourself.
And
And
my last word would be honor where people are at. If they're still in that religious realm, honor it. We've all been there, done that. And also honoring if you're in your spiritual realm and you're maybe surrounded by people that don't understand who you are, and just honor where people are at in their different realms. So
yeah, I think really my real last word is that, as you go through experiences, you may find yourself reliving that, religious idea, what we're labeling as a religious idea, that you've got to work hard for the reward kind of a thing. But in reality, if you work more with your guidance, everybody has a different way of how they do those sorts of things. And you might not recognize that you are making it harder on yourself than you need to. So it's a step by step, inch by inch process. So we're all just practicing. But boy, once you become aware and you can work directly with your spiritual helpers, I mean, I just found that it's so much easier to, change and grow. Is, what we call it growing, we call it evolving, but
And to that, I'll say
Yeah.
amen for the
Amen.
spiritual.
Well,
I mean, for the religious, and booyah for the spiritual.
oh, I like that.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening in and watching on our YouTube channel to another episode of Enthusiastically Spiritual. We've enjoyed today. We hope you've gotten some good gold nuggets for yourself and some insights. And if you like this episode, please feel free to share with a friend or a neighbor or a colleague or anyone else that may need a little support in the areas of their spiritual support.
Yeah, whatever you're going through, it's all building towards your self-awareness.
I love it. And so until next week, remember that life is too short to not be enthusiastic about your unique journey. Hey everyone, for a spiritual perspective that you won't find anywhere else but right here, please make sure you subscribe.